It's a busy week to watch out for Fragments of Silicon.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining us always are the greater mooks, Petty and Gollix.
Oh boy.
I guess I can
Right.
take that.
Look, you're an endgame mini boss thing from Earthbound. Anyway, let us get to the news, such as it is. Petty, why don't you start us off this week?
Well, I guess the big thing is today is my 33rd birthday. Hooray.
Happy birthday.
Also, my twin sister's birthday on account of how twins work.
Yes. So who's the older twin?
My sister by 30 seconds. So that was fun. And yes, it was a C-section before you ask. Because it would be real awkward if it was otherwise.
I suppose.
We didn't get a whole lot of presents this year because mom job situation. I did get a new skillet, which I am the cook of the house, so new cookware is nice. And Dad got me a new chef's knife. So
Probably need to get a new big skillet here soon, since the old one is, well, people have been using knives with it.
Oh no. Yeah, but this one I have should be non-stick because I was using a stainless steel one for a while and shit kept sticking to it. So
yeah, better than a cast iron one.
Cast iron's good if you can take care of it properly. Once the care regimen slips, it's real hard to fix it up again.
It's impossible. It's practically impossible to destroy cast iron, to actually ruin it. But it's a lot of work to make it good, and if it gets ruined and if it gets messed up, it can be a lot of work to make it good again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's part of the reason I don't like cast iron.
Yeah.
Also, you have to remember to season it.
Yep.
I mean, that's what the preparation is mostly.
Yeah, and it's not trust me, I have been through the hell of seasoning because we had a cast iron wok before, and God, that was a pain in the ass.
It's basically a bake on your own and non-stick coating.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was able to use the new skillet today, and I like it. I don't have to put as much water in the ground meat when I was making it for nachos tonight. So that is nice. As far as like other birthday things, not really a whole lot. It's been relatively quiet. My mom did mention that she wants to give me some more Digimon cards after she gets the job, which fair. And I have been kind of using some of the online simulators to test out what deck I want to bring to regionals mid-May. So that's it. Deck building is hard when you're doing it for something competitive like a regional tournament. So it's just trying to figure out.
Especially, because a lot of that stuff involves metagame decisions, and you don't know what the actual metagame is.
I do like look around on stuff like Reddit and whatnot, and like some of the like. There are websites where they're there for like sanctioned tournaments that they like post the deck lists.
I'm not. You can find out what some of the metagame, but I mean like the very specific metagame of that area.
See, that's not as much of a thing for regional because we had people coming from as far away as California because they
Fair.
think that just here in like the Missouri Kansas area we're not as good as the game, but surprise. So yeah, I have an idea on like what so many of the like local people play, but it's still better to get like a broader range of what else is going on like online and stuff. So I have parts ordered for like, all 3 of the decks that I want to build. So it's just a matter of figuring out the deck I want to use and then just submit the deck list for it. I have gotten another friend into the game, which is hilarious. I am becoming patient 0. And then I guess as far as like gaming news and so on, I have not really been playing a whole lot of games this week other than my weekly Final Fantasy XIV stuff. I need to get back into Oblivion because I have the Oblivion remaster from Game Pass. So it's one of those just trying to look through that again, like because Oblivion was the first 360 game I played. I got it with my 360. So it's just one of those, oh hey, it's been a long time since I've seen that. And yeah, I think that's it from me.
Well, that means it's your go, Gallux.
Well, after the this past weekend, I think I told you guys about this, but I don't think it's been on the show yet, right?
It depends.
That my mother was washing the windows, and while I was away, she decided to wash the windows inside my room. And in doing so, she had to move my computers around and disconnected monitors on actually both my work computer setup and my actual computer, apparently. And for most of Friday, I was panicking, thinking that my computer was somehow broken. It may just not have had active HDMI or DisplayPort things on the motherboard, and I had plugged the thing into the motherboard, or she had plugged the thing back into the motherboard instead of into the video card, and I thought it was supposed to be that way. Although, who knows, maybe it is broken. But anyway, I have theoretically plenty of things there, so I was able to get everything to work again partway through Saturday, but then I missed out on doing some stuff I was hoping to do on Saturday, including going to the Digimon set pre-release.
Oh.
But I got 2 boxes of the set, so I have plenty of stuff anyway. But probably more than I needed, honestly.
Yeah, there isn't a whole lot in this set unless you want Atmon.
This set is, I mean, I'm interested in Atmon, but the problem is with this set is that they're doing the Atmon, and then on account of the Atmon, they're doing a big nostalgia thing where they have the main protagonists of every season.
The
problem of that is that every single season protagonist, with one exception, is a Digimon line that includes red. Tagiru is primarily purple, but it's red-purple.
Yeah.
And that makes the set incredibly red, and then the second most biggest thing is purple balanced.
Well, and yellow.
Yellow is the second most, but the yellow is almost all Saver's partner line.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, this is also because they needed to release it in the next set after it was revealed in the comic. They also included Owen Dreadnought's partner line, which is also red. So this is a set that is like...
And I guess for reference,
It's probably safe
usually
to say...
there's only 1 or 2 lines for each color.
Yeah.
This one has like 3 or 4 different Digivolution lines that have red.
Yes. And it's Owen's whole deck, not just his partner. It's his partner. So I did a calculation, and it was like if you took out the Owen Dreadnought stuff from this set, that would free up like 11 card slots that then they could use for, I don't know, Atmon in other colors.
Yeah.
Or like another Atmon main character, because they only included the actual main character.
Honestly, I feel like the Owen stuff was supposed to be in Chains of Liberation, but they just wasn't done in time.
They wanted to delay him because he was a major character, I think. Like it was relevant that they were not showing off his stuff until his story purpose was at that point. It's just that unfortunately they then had to reveal the cards at the same time.
Yeah.
Because if they waited, people would complain, and if they showed them in the manga too early, then people would complain about not getting them. So yeah, it's usually they're pretty good about having reasonable color balance. This set is exceptionally bad at it, and I hope it's not a harbinger of things to come. Because Digimon always has protagonist bias. Anyway, so yeah, that happened. Nothing really significant video game wise, I don't think. I've been trying to play some of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but it's not much fun to play that in solo, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I don't get to play with my friends often, so just to, like, you know, warm up for the new thing. I have not yet pre-ordered a Switch 2 because I didn't feel like putting in the amount of effort required for that, which is exceptional.
Yeah, and I'm looking at people trying to already scalp them for 200-300 over. I'm like, yeah, no.
I'm just hoping I'll be able to get one for a reasonable price sometime after it comes out. Or if I do get a chance to pre-order it from Nintendo or something, maybe I will, but... I did, however, pre-order the new Zelda amiibos from Best Buy, which are coming out at around the same time, because I have a complete collection and I want to continue having that, except for some fucking reason, apparently they're not allowing the Unobo one of all people to be pre-ordered.
That almost sounds like it was a computer bug.
It's everywhere, though. It's not like just Best Buy.
Huh.
No retailer is allowing Unobo to be pre-ordered. You can pre-order Riju, you can pre-order Tulin, you can pre-order Sidon. So that's the cute girl, the hunky fish man, and the cute bird kid. But no, you can't pre-order the Goron awkward guy. Admittedly, he's cooler in Tears of the Kingdom than he was in Breath of the Wild.
Weird.
Even though he takes off the cool thing as soon as he's stopped being a mind-controlled drug lord. Anyway, that's about what I'm up to, I think.
Okay, then. Which means it's my turn. We are entering week 3. Yes, I think it's the 3rd week of vehicle drama. And it's just a laborious process, you know, trying to get all the people to talk to each other, let's say. And it's causing no shortage of acrimony, let's say. I mean, coupled onto it, my brother was subjected to a phishing scam today,
Oh,
apparently.
no.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Like, and not an online one. Like some people called him about his car being in danger of being repossessed.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Uh,
had there's a toll scam going around here in Missouri. There are no toll roads in the state of Missouri. Somebody tried that on my
Well,
dad's like, yeah, no, you will delete that right now.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
in New York and I got the same one this morning. You just delete it.
Yeah. You know, according to him, he's current with everything, so this shouldn't have. You know, something was fishy.
Did he
So
actually lose money on this, or was it just somebody tried to get
somebody
money out of it?
tried.
Okay, that's at
Somebody,
least better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's also because he was behind on his bills because of job related issues.
Hmm.
It was like, mainly won't say he didn't have one, but he was doing the Uber thing without the taxi service, which doesn't pay as well.
No, I'd imagine.
So it was a bit touch and go there while he was looking for an actual money sustaining job, which he has now, but just started, and like I said, just all the just a lot of dramatics with the family. Nothing necessarily with me, which is fine.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, all that aside, I have completed Resident Evil 4. And yeah, I never feel like I need to play Mercenaries mode or any of the extra bits just with how long Resident Evil 4 is.
Well, like once you
Like,
do the like regular campaign, there's nothing. All of that is just extra fluff.
not well, no, it's not. Like, not separate ways in Ada's mission. Like,
Hmm. Oh, that
and
they added that. I've totally forgot about that.
yeah, and not to mention that the campaign has the additional weapons in professional mode.
Mm,
Like, it's got things to get you to coming back, but it's not like, say, the original Resident Evil where you can you can legitimately complete it in a few hours.
mm,
Where Resident Evil 4, like, even a dedicated playthrough, it's gonna take you some time. Like, even with like the infinite rocket launcher.
right.
So I've moved on to Atari 50 because
Oh,
I've been watching a lot of Atari stuff recently.
mm,
So felt like um you know, like other Digital Eclipse collections, it's a very good museum piece. The games themselves, well, a lot of Atari's stuff was based around radial dials and trackballs. So,
Mm.
trying to play Breakout with an analog stick is not something I would ever recommend.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's funny. My keyboard has a radial dial on it, but I don't think I can map it to use like use it as like a control thing for like breakout or something like that, which is real weird.
Yeah. Um, Using a mouse with paddle games works all right, but you still don't get quite the precision that a good radial knob provides.
I think that really depends on the DPI scaling, which on Windows is very, very bad.
Mm.
True, but regardless, there's a lot of games there with less than optimal control styles. The Atari 2600 section is much better, but still has the occasional, demons to diamonds where, oh, you really need a paddle for this.
Yeah. I think they make USB ones if you really wanted to go down that route.
Yeah. Not to mention, some of these games just don't hold up or are very short and, don't it's always the problem I have going that far back. Is like a lot of these games don't hold my attention for more than say 2 minutes at most.
Yeah.
Anyway, still
At
10
least
hours
from a
in and
historical
only 3
standpoint,
sections down, so that's going to take me a while. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's about it for my news for the week. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Tess Wainright of YuriSoft.
Hi, well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Right. So, how we like to get started properly with the interview is we like to get to know the people behind the game, the studio, and all of that business. And we do this by asking this particular question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
So on a personal level, when I was very little, probably like in kindergarten or something, my grandmother got me a Nintendo 64. I think the first game I was ever really into was Banjo-Kazooie back in the day. Um, and yeah, from there it was just sort of, grew off into all different avenues. I've always enjoyed writing, and I kind of got a bit of a sales pitch that brought me into games. When it came to narrative for games, they're like, "Oh, if you like writing, you should, be a writer for video games." And so, one thing led to another, and I kind of ended up here. I ended up majoring in game design in school, and I freelanced as a writer and as a teacher for a little bit. And then eventually I decided to start up an indie game, which is what we're talking about. So, yeah.
Okay, so is this your first video game experience, or did you freelance as a video game writer?
Yeah, I freelanced as a video game writer. So I think the first video game I ever wrote story for was called Pumpkin Days. That was a big 3D farming simulator that I wrote dialogue for a lot of characters for. They would draw art for the characters and give sort of a basic personality, and I'd just fill in lots of backstory and relationship with the other characters, through their dialogue that would, come up when you talk to them. It probably still is one of my favorite games that I've worked on. I just lucked out that my first one was also a really neat game.
Not personally familiar with it, but sounds interesting at least. Like,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I've worked on has been very small, so um, I don't know if I don't think I have anything that has like a lot of reach, but yeah, I've worked on a lot of educational stuff. Um, in the past, I helped out with sort of a learning tool almost that a university I attended was working on um, some other related stuff.
duly noted. And how long ago was YuriSoft founded?
So we started working on the Songbird Guild in late 2019. With all the confusion of the pandemic, it wasn't actually formalized as a company. until February of 2021. But yeah, as of this September, it will be 6 years from the very first conversation of, let's make a Yuri RPG. And it looks a lot different today than, it did all those years prior.
I mean, that's not surprising, given work over 6 years. In fact, it'd probably be stranger if it stayed mostly the same. Like, anyway, so I suppose we should get into, why you and your cohorts felt the need to make a Yuri RPG.
Well, it actually kind of started out with, having, like a Fire Emblem thing where you have an RPG where the characters have romance with each other.
Mhm.
But we wanted to make it very, LGBT representative. And that was sort of how it started. None of that is actually still in the game, but because we started out sort of working on that, that's how we got this whole, story together as far as, a Yuri adventure about, you know, two magical girls together. um I remember there's this convention down in New York City called FlameCon, and it's sort of about the intersection of nerd culture and the LGBT community. And there's lots of comic book artists. There's lots of different creative people. Um, but yeah, I remember the first time I went there, being like, "Oh, this is a group I want to make a game specifically for like this whatever you describe the target audience of FlameCon." um I just felt really at home there, and so that was sort of how it started with let's make an RPG and make it very rainbow.
Understandable. And how do I put this? Um, I'm actually not surprised the direction um this project has gone down, because the conversation around LGBT plus mechanics is a surprisingly nuanced one. I'm like,
Hmm.
um, I guess to give a basic overview, um, these kind of mechanics tend to default to the bisexual or pansexual or player sexual
Hmm.
designation. I mean, see, well, you mentioned Fire Emblem. I mean, that was very much the case in Three Houses.
Yeah.
Three Houses is the first one where it isn't entirely true. There are some, i.e., is the first one in which you can have same-sex relationships that don't involve the player.
Like, that's
But
beside the point.
it's still largely that, yeah.
That's beside the point. But it's something that's arisen from everything from Baldur's Gate 3 to Stardew Valley, and the question of how, for lack of a better term, queer these relationships actually are is been the subject of very fiery debate, to say the least. And it's like, the overall discussion there is perhaps beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, because here we have an actual dedicated same-sex pairing at the center, which is markedly different than these other mechanics.
Yeah. So originally, the way that it was designed to work is, if you'll notice, there's a little mouse guy that hangs around with them. That was originally designed to be your player character, and essentially the concept was that you recruited magical girls, and as the magical girls, got closer together, they might form romantic relationships. And since they were, all girls, or non-binary, or somewhere between non-binary and femme, gendered,
Right.
then it ended up being very Yuri focused. But we ended up sort of going down a rabbit hole of like, well, you could pair these two people together, or you could pair these two people together. So it all ended up sort of, it had to stay bland enough that any of the options could happen. And, because nothing could affect the overall story very much, or else you'd end up with this huge explosion of, possibilities. And eventually it got complicated enough that we kind of decided to focus on what at the time was by far the most fleshed out pairing and kind of the team's favorite pairing. We were like, instead of making it a game where, you can pair any group of people, let's focus on our favorite characters, and let's focus the story on our favorite pairing. And so that's kind of how we ended up here.
Once again, that is actually a big chunk of the bisexual player sexual conversation that's going on right now.
Yeah.
The supposed blandness, airiness of it all, and there's definitely an argument to be had there. So, yeah, is a statement to its own end. Like, I
think you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Adam, you're dropping.
Oh, I hate. Am I coming in now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right now you're good.
All right. Don't know what that was. But as I was saying, so sorry, God, I lost my train of thought with that spike there. Like, I hate that. Right.
So we were talking about, like, romance mechanics where
Yeah.
any character can end up with any character, and how that kind of ends up sort of stretching out the budget and scope enough that sometimes it can feel like the individual pairings don't get a lot of um love. It almost sounds like is kind of the point that was being brought up.
Yeah. And are you satisfied with the solo pairing that you picked?
Yeah, um we had talked about pairing these two together a lot. It was one of those things where it was like, technically you can pair either of them, with each other, but we were always like, the two of them belong together. So, it was kind of, um, we did put it to a vote, but I think we kind of knew in the beginning, the group that had the most content dedicated to them.
Makes sense. It's what you worked on the most. So, that aside, now, is this primarily a romance story or a love story, or is that uh, something that is part of the overall gestalt? But is it this more about, say, saving the world, or recruiting magical girls, etc., etc., etc.?
So it's not so much about recruiting magical girls anymore. You kind of end up established with your party, at the end of the first episode, and then you just sort of, go from there. It's so the way I see it, I like to describe it as both of these characters have, maybe expectations of themselves, um, that aren't realistic, views of themselves that aren't realistic. Um, and I think, a lot of it is sort of about them learning to love themselves so they can sort of properly, love others as well. And a lot of that comes from really seeing what the other person sees in them. To each of them, they are, not who they want to be or what they want to be right now. But to the other person, they're, amazing in everything that person, wishes that they were. And so they kind of learn there's a, like, self-love to, other love path there. That said, that sort of comes out through the stressors applied that do lead to a much bigger story about, the world that they live in, and how it ended up the way that it ended up. There's sort of, I almost want to say, an Attack on Titan-esque situation where everyone's sort of in these, small cities, and outside of the cities, like a darkness zone where, these shadow creatures live. These magical girls are going out there to harvest resources, and but it's kind of a hard and thankless job. You're going out, putting yourself into danger every day to collect, herbs, essentially. Um,
Right.
it's both. I'd say they're about 50-50. So I don't know if I'd put one above the other. One kind of doesn't exist without the other, I think.
Once again, not too surprised there, since both of these elements are very much facets of magical girl stories.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure we could both cite everything from Sailor Moon to Madoka Magica that
Yeah, I
contains.
think we'd be here for days on that.
Yeah. No, it definitely wears its inspiration on its sleeve a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that that's something that people will enjoy as well. 'Cause there's lots of stuff that we tried to put in, like with even the design of the familiars, that sort of has a bit of a, classic magical girl feel to it.
Mm. I mean, just as long as Kube isn't showing up.
No, the animal familiars are actually good people, so there's not going to be any. Um, I was actually a villain all along type of thing.
Right. Or at the very least, some sort of Faustian antagonist.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's a
right.
conversation unto itself. Oh boy.
That's a video essay on YouTube in and of itself.
I'm aware. Like, anyway,
Now, I've watched that video essay on YouTube.
don't doubt it. Like, um, anyway, we should probably dive a bit deeper into these characters, because we've talked a bit about them, but who are they? Like, what are their names? Where are they? How old are they? That sort of thing.
um, so Kotori Mori, who is the girl you see with the short red hair, and she's wearing a pink shirt. She is in her sort of mid-20s, and she's trying to get work as a magical girl. In this world, being a magical girl isn't a secret, it's just sort of like a job that you have, and you get hired by companies who need things that can only be, found outside of the city limits. Um, and you get them their stuff. They give you money. You get to eat food. Um, so she really wants to be a magical girl. She's trying out for all these different guilds, and none of them are taking her. Um,
Hmm.
Ida is the leader of a certain magical girl guild named the Songbird Guild. And he is sort of more of a veteran, but she doesn't have as much raw magical potential as Kotori does. So she's had to really claw her way up, bit by bit to have the talents that she has. And that sort of creates some insecurity in her, where she sort of sees it like when bad things happen to people around me, it happened because of my situation. If I, was a more, in tune with magical girl, all of that bad stuff wouldn't have happened, which isn't necessarily true. Um, but so at first she sort of seems like this, together, veteran. She's, everything Kotori wants to work herself towards, but inside she has her own demons that she's sort of fighting as well.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that magical girl trope.
Yep, yep.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
saying
like, well,
bad or anything, but I'm like, yeah, like I remember that being a big part of, say, Sailor Moon.
yeah,
Really a lot of magical girl series, because they tend to be like in high school or something like that, and
Yeah.
you know, around the age where a lot of that self doubt is most palpable.
yeah.
Mm. Premise also reminds me of Magi Lumiere.
I actually haven't heard of that one.
Um,
It's
it's
Magilumiere Company Limited is the English title. It's magical girls as like literally working an office job in Japan.
I think
yeah,
Huh.
it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh,
yes,
that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to
There's a
check that
first
out.
season out, but the manga goes past that, so there will probably be another one as long as it did reasonably well, which I think it did.
yeah,
Cool.
or
It said that's
or
Magica Lumiere.
yeah, Magilumiere.
Okay, cool.
um, okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk a bit about the RPG uh, side of the equation. Um, like, what kind of RPG are you going for here?
So it's a bit more of a turn-based RPG that right
Mhm,
now sort of is about trying not to run out of your own resources like health and stamina.
mhm,
You have, rooms that you're trying to go through, and, monsters might attack you while you're there. And you use, either the magic that's provided by your animal familiars, or your own physical stamina to do things, whether that's healing or attacking enemies. Um, and then, they attack you and lower your health. And it's sort of meant to invoke this feeling of like, you can't stay out in this place for too long. There's a certain sort of inevitability of like eventually you will, run out of, what you have. It's just a matter of you're trying to accomplish your goal before that happens.
mhm,
Um, and I hope that complements the story of like, inside the city, everything's all sort of nice and very slice of life and heartwarming, but then you you get outside, and it's like, yeah, this is a place where you cannot stay for too long without it. You know, you'll get hunted down eventually.
So it sounds like survivability is a core component here.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it going to be a procedurally generated affair?
No. It's just, got a lot of different battles that you might be able to run into. You can see their choices that you make in sort of, visual novel style. And that sort of determines, the different rooms that you might go to, what your approach might be for tackling those rooms. And then, depending on that, that determines what you have to sort of, fight through to a certain extent, if that makes sense.
I think it does. Are there going to be actual dungeons?
Yeah, so what happens is every episode starts out with you essentially getting a new, project that you're working on, essentially. Sometimes this is just a contract that your guild is doing. Sometimes this is something that your guild is, going outside the barrier to do just on their own volition. But either way, you sort of have a new thing, like, we need to go to this place to do this thing. And you open up the map, you decide, do you want to go back and re-tackle an old dungeon? Do you want to tackle this new one that opened up for this, new story, essentially? And then in each dungeon, there's sort of a story that goes along with you going through it. At the end, there's a boss. And if you defeat the boss, then you get the ending of the episode, and you go on to the next episode. And there are little secrets that you can get if you either take on challenges or, answer secret puzzles and stuff like that. That will unlock, little side stories, which are often just, your characters doing fun little things in the city that are tangentially related to what's happening in the main story. But ultimately, that's sort of them living their life, whereas the dungeons are, them doing their work, essentially.
Right. And what is the current state of development of the game?
So we're kind of we released a demo last August and got a lot of really good feedback on it. So we're kind of in the process of giving it a bit of a facelift from there. There's some new and improved UI stuff. There's more art involved. There's a few modifications to, how the mechanics work, just based on sort of how everyone reacted to that last year when we got it out to a wide audience. I'm hoping that will come out soon-ish. I definitely don't have a date for it yet, but that's in the works right now.
Now, is this all just cosmetic stuff you're working on? Is the bones of the game there just cosmetic touch-up, or is there still more work to be done on the game itself?
As far as the game itself goes, I think we're about halfway through the main story, and a lot of that has been more recently developed. Much of the 5.5 years that we've been working on it has been sort of getting to this point where we have a skeleton that everything else is built on, from the mechanics and the art style and the story and the way the story plays out and all of that stuff. So now we're at the point of sort of taking the systems we have, improving them a bit as we move on, but also just sort of filling out the rest of the story that we have planned, with the
Mhm.
actual writing, art, and programming, and audio as needed.
Right.
Hmm. And I know these things can be tricky, but how much more development work do you think the game has?
Ah, see, it's hard to say right now. I've already given a couple of different dates in the past that I thought were going to happen, and then we had to say it wasn't going to, work out by that date. So I'm hesitant to commit to anything too early. Um, but yeah, the demo came out last August. I would like it to not be after August before we have, some more, you know,
Right.
fleshed out things to show, because that would be over a year. Um, but yeah, it all kind of depends on how these next few months go.
Mm-hmm.
Understandable. And do you think you'll launch a second demo?
That's the plan right now. Is hopefully to, launch another, free demo that essentially covers the same ground as the old one, but, with, more updated, things you can do potentially, and, the cosmetic updates, and, you know, just some of the things that we're hoping will improve, that demo. Um, the side stories actually that I had mentioned are not in the original demo. I'm hoping that there'd be like, one or so that you could experience in the second demo. Again, we'll see. That's there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Of course.
Getting there.
Right. And I guess my final question at this stage is, have you worked out any sort of pricing for Songbird Guild yet, or is that still in the works?
Um, See, I know I'm being really vague about a lot of this stuff, but
It's better to be vague and get
I'm
yelled at later. We understand.
yeah, I'm actually talking with someone right now who might have control in that. There's somebody who I don't want to sort of speak for as well.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I have my thoughts, but
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying them publicly quite yet until I get certain other parties' thoughts too.
Fair enough.
Right. I mean, I believe YuriSoft is a team of 8, according to your website.
Yeah, that's myself, plus kind of the core people, plus a lot of like, the freelancers that have worked on it. So a lot of different hands that have sort of
Mhm.
touched it. I do
Right.
try to keep it sort of democratic between um all the people. So even for price, like that's something that I would want to, bring to the team and be like, hey, we have to sort of decide, what's fair for this,
Mm-hmm.
before I go ahead and just say, oh, by the way, our game's going to be this. And
Yeah.
sometimes you ask that question and nobody has a preference, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll do what I had planned.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to at least have the conversation.
Yeah, 'cause it's definitely one of those things you could say one price, more development work would need to go in to make it untenable at that price, and then, the fans get mad because you
Yeah.
said it was at one price.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so I think I've run through my gamut of questions. Anything further from you two?
I think I'm good.
Yes, I believe we have covered the bases.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So, Tess, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today to talk about your game.
Oh, thank you.
Certainly looks promising so far, and we look forward to seeing it develop.
Awesome.
Hope
Well, thank you.
you know. I mean, 6 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the game doesn't take another 6.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully.
Uh, anyway, does the Songbird Guild have a Steam page yet?
Yes. You can actually download the demo that was released last year on that Steam page. So if you just go to Steam and search the Songbird Guild, it should probably show up. It has the trailer that I sent you is the same one that's on Steam. So if you see the trailer that's been looping on the page, you're in the right place.
All right then. So yeah, just go and do that, and wish list it today, since apparently that helps out with the logarithmic search engine thing.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Play us to the
Alright.
next segment. All right, so welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we are talking about Mario Kart World at long last, or at least everything that we know about Mario Kart World to date.
Mm-hmm.
Like, certainly, the game's still a few months out, so certainly more could be gleaned in the interim.
Indeed.
Yeah, but yeah, I suppose getting back to the conversation that we were having about Mario Kart World vis-a-vis the Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct, I don't think we've learned anything from the dedicated Mario Kart World Direct that really justifies the $80 price tag.
Yeah.
Like, it really does.
Honestly, I'm not fully comfortable with trying to claim that there's something in the games that justifies the price tag, because I don't think there was any claim of that.
Honestly, with the bundle coming out, basically making it $50, that's what they want you to buy.
Yes,
They really want you to buy that Switch bundle.
That's really the tell here. The fact that the bundle is being offered until next spring for a substantial discount.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah, I'd probably still for what, $30 off still get that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like,
plus that is a game that it's actually fairly convenient to have installed on your hard drive, so that even if you had another game previously, if friends unexpectedly show up and say, hey, want to play Mario Kart or whatever,
right,
you don't have to find the card.
Right. But once again, like with Tears of the Kingdom, they did come out and maybe not directly say why that game was $70, but it was $70 because because between the development time, between all the new systems, not so much graphical, but like all of the new physics that took to do the nuts and bolts stuff that game is doing.
Like that, and the fact that video game companies have been looking for an excuse to raise their prices for a decade now.
I'm aware of that, but keep in mind, Tears of the Kingdom was a Nintendo Switch 1 game. And I think it's the only Nintendo Switch 1 game to be offered at $70. Like when Nintendo said that was a special case, they meant it. Now with the Switch 2, the median price does seem to be, at least for first-party software, does seem to be being raised to $70. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza is being offered at $70.
Mhm.
Like, once again, there doesn't seem to be a singular reason why we're getting the $80 game, other than that Nintendo thinks they can get away with it, and also to further incentivize the digital bundle that they're offering.
Yeah.
You know, because that's a lot of what's going on with the whole argument about, the expense of game development and so on and so forth. And it's also a stark change from Nintendo's philosophy, because they've been the slowest to adapt to, modern day pricing scheme.
Mhm.
But now not only have they adapted, they're fucking leading the charge, because nobody else has dared breach the $80 mark.
Mhm.
I still maintain that this is only because of this being the year when they're releasing a new console. Anyone else who released a new console this year would be doing the same thing.
I think it also depends. It's because that they're offering up a new Mario Kart game. Like, even Nintendo doesn't think that they can offer up a new Donkey Kong game at $80. It's still premium, pricing, but it's not, virgin territory. And I suppose Ubisoft collector's edition nonsense.
Yeah.
Where
When you need a
yeah,
fucking chart to make sure you actually get the game.
with the ridiculous merch,
Mhm.
and the tacked on, you get to access the game a week early, and this bundle has the exclusive day one DLC. Like, they haven't gotten that bad yet, but
Mhm.
These current developments do not portend that Nintendo will stay on that track, so to speak.
Indeed.
And I suppose on the nice side of things, Nintendo doesn't seem to be offering up the key cards for any of their first party releases yet.
Yeah. Yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's something they want to do.
Well, it's because
And I'm still glad they're labeling it, even if the way that it's turned out has been that practically every third party release is using them, probably because of the or rather I haven't seen anything that makes it seem like the rumored, well, your choices for printing things on a game card is a 64 gig one or nothing.
I would imagine they're probably going to, once like the issue with tariffs and stuff start dying down, we might start seeing larger game cards.
I hope. Also, just once they've had more time to manufacture them.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so on that, the latest rumors are that Nintendo is apparently only offering up the really big, expensive game cards.
Right, that's what I said. But the thing that I saw is that at least part of the reason for that was because they wanted to make sure they had enough of the big ones. And this, some people are theorizing that they may start making smaller ones once they have enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Also, I'm not thrilled at the prospect of having the game key cards, and I probably will not purchase any of the game key cards and just download those digitally. But if they're going to do it, which again, this is a thing that has already been being done to various degrees,
Yep.
it being labeled is good.
Yes. It's just now that there's a label for this, people are actually noticing that this practice is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because there have definitely been games that have been released with either nothing or an incomplete version in box.
Yeah, like a lot of the sports games are definitely guilty of this.
Mm-hmm. And there's certainly a number of third parties that are going and I keep mentioning, like, anything that was a bundle on the Nintendo Switch often had one game on the card, and then you had to download the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing new, but it's now being highlighted.
Well, and same with like the Spyro and Crash Bandicoot collections on the PS4 just had the first games on the disc, and then it just immediately downloaded the other games that were available for it.
Right.
So
But
this isn't new Nintendo fuckery, basically.
Yeah, but we're getting off track here, and there's probably an independent topic here where we talk about Nintendo's pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just regulated to the Nintendo Switch, like the big ones, the accessories, because those are the ones that got nailed with the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
But pushing that aside, Mario Kart World is looking to be Mario Kart Horizon, in the sense that you drive in between the Grand Prix now. And other details that we have learned is the amount of players that are going to be up on screen. 24, which is a substantial boost over, what was it, 12?
I believe so.
For Mario Kart 8?
I don't have the stuff in front of me.
Yeah. And already the player count is looking to be, we don't know the final count of playable characters. We don't know the entire roster,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a big one already. 40 playable characters.
Yeah.
Not all of them been highlighted in the trailers.
And those are the ones that are different characters, because part of the reason we don't know how many actual separate playable characters is because on the character selection screens that have been shown, different outfits count separately, and there are a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's another change from previous Mario Karts. Outfits are being emphasized. In fact, I think this might be the first Mario Kart where outfits are selectable.
Yeah, no, this is the first time that's happened.
Yeah.
Maybe not counting the mobile one, but
Yeah.
mobile things don't count.
Well, yeah, you'd expect the mobile version of a thing to go all in on cosmetics.
Right.
Though I'm not sure if Mario Kart on Tour does that, like, as it does on characters. Like, oh boy, like, I think Diddy Kong cost $40 for that game.
Still not as egregious as Overwatch.
I mean, they're both terrible.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about it on Tour here.
Fair.
And yeah, the roster's looking to be quite a few deep cuts, because the thing that first got highlighted was the cow from Moo Moo Meadows,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly not the only odd choice.
Right.
Like we got the dolphin with the goggles from Super Mario World showing up.
Right.
And the penguin from Super Mario 64. Like, right down to the low poly count.
Mm-hmm. I'm almost wondering if
So
that's an outfit and they'll have like a high poly model for normal.
it's possible, but I remember seeing in the treehouse footage, it's the penguin from Mario 64.
Mhm.
And there are other deep cuts. I'm not sure if Spike counts as a deep cut these days. Like,
It's
okay,
not.
he's not Gooba or
He's in every multiplayer Mario game.
yeah, it's like saying Chain Chomp is a deep cut. Like, okay, not Koopa levels of appearing in everything, but not Shell Creeper level of obscure
Wake
either.
me up when King Toad comes around. Or King
Or
Frog,
Side
rather.
Hopper,
Yeah.
Showing up. Or I'm not sure if this one's been confirmed, but I wouldn't be surprised. A Chuckya. If you don't know what those are, those are
Aren't the
the
Chuckyas just Piantas with a special job?
no, those are from
No,
Mario
that's
64.
Stir. Never mind.
Yeah, I think they're called Chuckyas. Like,
You're right.
my point is, there are still many deep cuts
Yeah,
to be
the
made.
Chuckyas are the purple guys who literally pick you up and throw you. That
Yes.
look like they're related to the bullies.
Yes, bullies themselves could be another pick. IROC.
I mean, they put in the fucking tie-dye spiders from Hazy Mazy Cavey, so...
Yes, that's what I'm getting at here. Nothing is out of bounds.
They could literally go Smash Bros. And everyone is here.
Like I said, pick a direction. Pick a Mario game, and we could get we got the Moai statues from Super Mario Land showing up, I think. Although, in fairness, they did show up in Odyssey. Like, Tatanga could show up.
That would be a pretty deep cut.
Yes. Because does Nintendo even acknowledge Sarasha Land anymore? Like, the actual
aside
kingdom
from Daisy existing.
Yeah, do they acknowledge
I think they do say Daisy is the princess of Sarasa Land when it comes up.
Because it's gonna come, because it's actually gonna come up in Mario Kart World. One of the tracks that has been unveiled is Daisy's track. I don't know if they've named it yet, but I've seen screenshots. Very Middle Eastern looking. Like 1001 Arabian Nights setting. Which kind of fits. Like, I don't remember a Middle Eastern setting in Super Mario Land, but I could
give or take.
Yeah, granted, some of that stuff was vaguer than
There may not be a proper Middle Eastern setting, but there are certainly plenties of deserts that got varying amounts of Middle East shaken onto them as set dressing.
Right. I'm like, so yeah, we don't know how deep the well goes,
and also
or if they're going to start referencing.
I was going to say, if we're going back to non-Mario characters as well.
Right, or even if we're going to go into the spin-off, like Goombella showing up.
Goombella, yeah. What's that one from Paper Mario?
Which one?
Mario?
The Ghost Lady.
Bo?
Oh, I know. I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember her name.
In Paper Mario 1, Bo is the Lady Boo. In Paper Mario 2, Flurry is not a ghost person. She's a wind spirit, and Vivian is also not a ghost person. She's a shadow person.
I think it's Vivian who I'm thinking of.
We had this conversation. I remember it. So
it will be interesting to see if any of the characters from the RPGs get brought out of spin-off jail.
Everyone dies if Gino shows up.
Well, that requires some extra licensing.
I mean, I'm aware, but also it has returned, so...
Yeah, I know Gino has returned made cameos. It just depends on if Nintendo feels like shelling out to Square Enix. I mean, for fuck's sake, Nintendo, you could probably buy out Gino if you really wanted to.
Yeah, Square's not doing too very well these days.
It's not that so much as like Squaresoft isn't going to do a lot of stuff with the elements that they own to Super Mario RPG.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure, or though it being Square Enix, they could be asking for an unreasonable amount as well. Like, don't know the particulars on that, but yeah, like I said, with the roster going the way it is, we could be getting the viruses from Dr. Mario. We could be getting Wanda from Wario and Mario, or Mario and Wario.
Like everybody from Mario Party, we don't know, or Wario Land, or
right, Captain Syrup could be showing up.
Yeah.
We want to get into this, once again, the spin-offs. They better not be counting different colored Yoshis as different characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's crippling levels of lame. Like, and there's also the further question of roster DLC and costume DLC. But the base game isn't out yet, so Nintendo, unlike other companies, isn't too focused on upselling you the DLC.
I hope if they're gonna make you pay $80 for the game, there better not be paid DLC.
Well, there's going to be paid DLC.
It just might be later.
Yeah, that's remember, scummy.
It depends on how late we're talking about here. Remember how late the
immediate paid DLC that practically is on disc stuff would be scummy. If they decide to do another significant expansion later on in the game's life, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what they did for Mario Kart 8. They did the Zelda Cup. They did the Animal Crossing Cup. The F-Zero Cup, I think. Or was that just a track?
I don't.
The F-Zero was just a track. It is effectively if I remember correctly, a tracks from other games cups. That's also the track that the Hyrule one is in.
Yeah, and I think Excite Bike was represented there as well for some reason.
Yes.
Anyway, it's worth noting that they are paring back some elements. I don't think we've really discussed, namely the carts themselves. Like, they're not going to be. You can't fiddle as much with the carts as you could in previous Mario Kart.
Honestly, I'm kind of in favor of this. While I'm sure there are a lot of optimizers who enjoy the idea of being able to super fiddle with your carts, specifically, you just select a cart. You don't select a cart and then select a glider and wheels for that cart.
Yeah. Because it's Mario Kart, not a goddamn F1 racing game.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I appreciate the the optimizability of having all of the different choices, but there are two problems with it. One is that it's extra button presses and time for consideration for relatively minor effect.
Mm.
And the two is that some of the optimal choices look like ass. The roller wheels are apparently one of the best wheels, and they're tiny.
Oh, God. Those are for the baby carts, aren't they?
Yes, but those are some of the ones they look better with. They look like crap on most of the things.
Mm.
But yes, they look okay on like the clown car and the biddy buggy.
Yeah. And this is another one of those, I don't know if it they're going, they've only shown off carts so far. Like, no motorcycles, at least not to my knowledge.
They showed off some of what would be considered ATVs, and I don't remember if they showed off bikes.
Yeah.
I'd be
Bike-
surprised if they took out the bikes. The bikes were pretty popular.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I'm cautioning here. They've really been focusing on the carts.
I thought in the trailer Peach was on a bike.
Probably
Could have been. Yeah, might have been. But like I said, they haven't highlighted those
Right.
yet, at the very least. So they might not be doing anything new or interesting. I don't know. You know, we're working with greater information, but still, limits here. Like the things they are really emphasizing right now is the parkour and the off-roading elements. Like, I will say the parkour stuff is legitimately interesting because it's a racing game. I won't say this is the first racing game to have parkour, but the first car racing game to have it for obvious reasons. You're not going to get that in an actual racing game with cars. And let's face it, other kart racing games are usually much more creatively bankrupt.
Mm.
There are exceptions. Transformed, which seems to be having an influence on Mario Kart World here.
Well, they knew they wanted to have. They weren't gonna ditch being able to have your cart glide for a bit.
That's not what I'm.
And having the
No, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about the full-on vehicle transformations.
That's actually what I was getting at, which is that they when they don't have to have a customizable separate glider or wheels, they can do more transformable stuff with the cart itself.
Right. Anyway, we are getting low on time here. So, any final thoughts on Mario Kart World at this stage?
Not really.
I'm curious to see how it ends up.
I'm sure it's going to end up being super polished. I'm not sure if they've unveiled all the items yet. That's a big consideration right there. Anyway, so we'll probably revisit Mario Kart World sometime after launch.
Assuming any of us get our hands on it.
Yeah, that's kind of the important thing. So one of us can. Fragments of Silicon coming up on the week ahead. We do have a new episode of MSP planned for soon. Anywhere between 11:15 to 11:30. We're not on the clock this week, so there's no need to rush or mess around with the schedule. Anyway, coming up on Friday, May 2nd, we will be having Eric Rempen of Silk Softworks. We will be talking about the games Kainga, Seeds of Civilization, and Shantytown. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Boomerang X, Spellcaster University, impressions of Dawn of Ages, and back to the review pile with Scarlet City of Devils. So look for that, and until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.